Brett was the only real man on the show. Out
Mhm.
of the dudes that they showed, like, I mean, I can't speak for the other guys that didn't get much camera time, but out of all of the couples, Brett is the only representation that I can be like, yeah, that's a real man. Like the rest of these
Yes,
dudes, they're
thank you.
simps, they're cowards, they're corny, and they just don't represent, especially me or men that I know, like at all. So for me, I liked Brett. I felt like he stood on his square. He was very clear about the fact that he was looking for a wife. He wanted to get married. And I felt that's what made him and Tiffany's connection so strong at the very
Mhm.
start. We can go ahead and start with the couple that you were just talking about, right? With Brett and Tiffany. Um,
Love
you
them.
already kind of alluded that there were some things that you could relate to when it came to
Mhm.
Tiffany. Did you have any other first impressions about her?
I thought she was really nice and super sweet. It was nice to see, a Black woman's story fleshed out in the pod section of the show. Because
Hmm.
again, I mean, if we want, can I talk about race real quick, Jay?
Of course.
Again, okay. So in the last two seasons, season 3 was filmed in Texas, one of the
Hmm.
Texas cities, and season 2 was filmed in Chicago. The
Mm.
Black girls on who were picked or who were in a couple on those seasons, they were biracial. And so
Mm.
we wanted to see more of a Black love story
Okay.
because there's always that, okay, the mixed is mixed people, they have their own seat at the table in
Hmm.
entertainment, and it's growing into that. And there's talks about like erasure of Black people who are, come from two Black parents. So it's nice to see Black women
Hmm.
getting chosen by Black men and not
Right.
Black men choosing biracial or white women. I
Mm.
hope this makes sense. I'm not
Yeah.
trying to cause division or anything like that. It's just the look of it all, because we do have a biracial presentation in this show this season
Hmm.
as well with Bliss. But it was nice to see Black love presented on the show through
Yeah.
Tiffany. So I hope I was clear with that.
Nah, that's real. So, what were your thoughts about Brett when
I
you?
thought, I thought Brett was nice. I mean, I didn't know much about him. So I would just wanted to know like more layers, more complexity. I mean, he gave his story about where he came from. Like
Mhm.
he had abject poverty, and then he didn't even get to go to college. But for him to work up to the ranks and really tap into his gifts that God gave him to draw and do art, and to the point where he made it to becoming like, what is it, a creative director over at
Mhm.
Nike. I thought that's very admirable. And to Tiffany's point, she was saying that I would kind of look over Brett outside of the pods, but hearing
Yeah,
his
she kept it a
story,
buck. She said that she wouldn't have dated him all because he didn't have a piece of paper, and I felt like that was
yeah.
very good example of what happens a lot when
Hmm.
women are judging men off of whether or not they check a certain box. And
Yeah.
to her own credit, I have to give her credit for admitting that she would have missed out on this dude, the dude that potentially could be, her guy. She would have missed out on him all because he didn't check the box of having a college degree.
Yes.
Minus the fact that his journey, in some regards, is way more admirable than a person who did just go to college and get a degree.
And get student loan debt, which I believe comes
That
up
too.
in later episodes.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I know
Um,
she was kind of like had some issues with money. That was the first time when Tiffany started raising red flags for me. It's like,
let's get into it because
okay.
nobody wants to talk about red flags with Brett and Tiffany, but I
Yeah. Like,
have a potential concern, but I'll
oh,
let you go. I'll let
okay,
you go
yeah. Well,
first.
I give you my first, like, it wasn't
Yes.
necessarily a red flag,
Mhm.
but I was thinking, like, man, this couple almost seems too good to be true. Like, if somebody would have asked me, like, are there actors on this show? Did they bring an already formed couple on this show as a plant? And I would have been like, it's them. Cause like the way they just connected off rip, I felt that it's something very unique. You don't really see on dating shows. And I'll
Mhm.
just kind of put this out there. I feel like they were the only people who came on this show looking for a spouse. To me, everybody else is treating this like a dating show. Like when
Yeah,
my assumption is that everybody's supposed to get married, right? Like you're supposed to get
mhm.
engaged, but
Ideally.
every single other couple
Mhm.
I felt personally is treating it like it's a dating show. Like they're not trying to get married. Like especially don't even get me started on the mean girls, Irina and Micah. Like their whole mission wasn't even to get a husband,
Those
wasn't
two.
to get a boyfriend. It was just to beat other women and keep them from connecting with the guy that they like. Like to me, that's all it
Yeah.
was. Micah only wanted to make sure Chelsea didn't get Kwame. She only wanted to make sure Amber didn't get Paul. And same thing with
Hmm.
Irina. She wanted to make sure that Bliss did not get Zach. They didn't care about those dudes. They
No.
just wanted to win.
Yeah, I for sure. I was like, you can tell if you watch enough reality TV, you can tell who wants to be there for the cameras and who wants to be
Hmm.
there for what the show's about.
Right.
And I I think that there were maybe a couple more people who were in it to get a spouse.
Who?
I think Zach really wanted one. I just think he just with this whole Bliss storyline now is throwing me, but we gonna get to
Yeah.
them. But I think Marshall really does want love, but
Hmm.
we gonna get into that too. But
Yeah, yeah. Nah. Marshall want a project. That's totally different than a wife, bro. So like
that
that,
could be a
I ain't
whole
Marshall.
episode in
I don't
itself.
know. I can't come. Yo, Marshall and all his crying. That was my first impression of him. Like, yo,
Woo!
bro, if you cry one more tear, like, bro, why you crying on your man? Ladies, let's be real. Like,
Oh snap!
if you met a dude and on date 2, he's boohoo crying, telling you his sob story, bro, like he is not getting a third date. I promise you, the majority of women are not giving him a third date. Like that dude cries so much, like I couldn't believe it. And don't even get me started on Kwame. Like that dude, he's so phony, he's so corny. Like
Oh my
Kwame just
god!
annoyed me to the umpteenth degree. To me, Brett was the only real man on the show. Out of
Mhm.
the dudes that they showed, like, I mean, I can't speak for the other guys that didn't get much camera time, but out of all of the couples, Brett is the only representation that I can be like, yeah, that's a real man. Like the rest of these
Yes,
dudes, they're
thank you.
simps, they're cowards, they're corny, and they just don't represent, especially me or men that I know, like at all. So for me, I liked Brett. I felt like he stood on his square. He was very clear about the fact that he was looking for a wife. He wanted to get married. And I felt that's what made him and Tiffany's connection so strong at the very
Mhm.
start, because it was like they both were essentially saying the same thing. Like, yo, I'm not here just to like meet any old person. Like, I'm here looking for my wife. I'm here looking for my husband. Then was like, oh, bet.
Mhm.
And y'all connect. So that was my first impressions about them.